Picture a cold platform in 1961, steam hanging in the air, the smell of coal and strong tea, and a little lit-up window promising warmth. That was the railway buffet, and it ran on rules that would horrify a modern health inspector. Number 9 on this list got a station manager, a stern letter from head office, yet passengers loved it. And number 2 was so trusted it needed no till at all. These buffets fed a nation of travelers on pennies, and then vanished. Before we start, hit subscribe. Let us count down 25 things the old British railway buffet did that no modern station ever would. Number 25. The thick, white railway china. Every cup was the same. Heavy, off-white, glazed like a bathroom tile, and near enough indestructible. The old refreshment rooms served tea in proper cups and saucers made from vitrified hotelware, the sort that could be dropped on a stone platform and merely bounce. That weight was deliberate. A thin china cup lets tea go cold in minutes, but this stuff held the heat while you waited for the 6:14 to crew. A cup and saucer might cost the railway a shilling or two and last a decade of hard use. It was washed, dried, and put straight back on the shelf for the next traveler. Modern stations would never. Today you get a paper cup with a plastic lid, used once and binned, cold before you reach the barrier. Number 24. Tea stewed in an urn all day long. There was no fresh pot brewed to order. The buffet kept an enormous polished tea urn hissing away from first train to last, and the brew inside grew stronger, darker, and more fearsome by the hour. By 4 in the afternoon, the tea could strip paint. Regulars knew this and timed their visits accordingly, some preferring the mild morning cup, others swearing the evening stew put hairs on your chest. A mug cost around 4 pence in the early 60s. Nobody checked the temperature, nobody logged the brew time, and nobody died. It came out the tap the color of creosote, splashed with a bit of sterilized milk, and it warmed you to the boots. A modern chain would never let a single pot sit for 14 hours. Back then, that was simply how tea worked. Number 23. Sandwiches curling under a glass dome. The British rail sandwich became a national joke, and the buffet counter was where the legend was born. Triangles of white bread with a scrape of margarine and a slice of ham or a smear of fish paste sat under a domed glass cover on the counter, slowly curling at the corners as the day wore on. There was no sell-by sticker, no sealed plastic wedge, no date at all. You judged freshness by eye, and if the corners had turned up like the toes of a genie's slipper, you knew to pick something else. A round cost about a shilling. Cheap, filling, and honest about what it was. A modern station would never display uncovered food on an open counter for hours. But those curling triangles fed millions of commuters, and half of them remember it fondly despite everything. Number 22. Everything washed and used again. There was no such thing as disposable. The buffet ran entirely on real crockery, metal spoons chained to the counter so they could not wander, glass sugar bowls with a communal spoon, and proper plates that went back into the little sink out the back to be scrubbed by hand. A busy junction buffet might wash 1,000 cups a day in water that never seemed quite hot enough. Nothing was thrown away that could be cleaned and returned to service. That single chained teaspoon, shared by every traveler passing through, would give a modern hygiene officer palpitations. But it saved the railway a fortune, produced almost no rubbish, and meant your tea came in something solid rather than something that dissolved in your hand. Number 21. Bovril and Oxo on the menu. When you came in off a freezing platform in January, you did not always want tea. You wanted something savory and hot, and the buffet had it. A cup of Bovril or a dissolved Oxo cube in boiling water was a standard order, a beefy, salty, steaming drink that thawed you from the inside. It cost a few pence, and it was practically a meal in a cup. Football crowds and shift workers lived on the stuff. The counter kept a jar of Bovril and a tin of cubes right beside the tea urn, ready to stir into a mug at a moment's notice. You would struggle to find a hot beef drink in a modern station concourse today. Back then it was as ordinary as ordering a coffee, and a good deal more warming. First pattern break. Here is where it gets interesting. Number 20. The buffet let you drink a proper pint at 6:30 in the morning. The station bar kept its own hours, tied to the trains rather than the licensing laws that governed ordinary pubs. Travelers held a special status, and a man catching the early mail train could stand at the buffet counter and order a pint of bitter while the rest of the country was still legally dry. Nobody blinked. A sleepy porter might be nursing a half at dawn beside a commercial traveler steadying his nerves before a long journey north. The beer was kept in the cellar below, pulled by hand, and served in a proper glass. A pint cost around 1.8 in the mid-60s. A modern station would never serve you a morning pint as a matter of routine. The railway buffet did it because the trains never slept, and neither did thirst. Number 19. Ashtrays on every table. The buffet was thick with smoke, and that was entirely normal. Every table carried a little tin ashtray, usually advertising a brand of cigarette or a local brewery, and the air hung blue beneath the lights. Men rolled their own or lit up a woodbine while they waited, tapping ash without a second thought. The staff smoked behind the counter between orders. Nobody asked you to step outside, because outside was a freezing platform, and the whole point of the buffet was to be in from the cold. That fug of smoke, tea steam, and frying bacon was the very smell of travel for 2 generations of Britons. A modern station would never allow a lit cigarette anywhere near the food counter. Back then, the ashtray was as essential as the sugar bowl. Number 18. Pies kept warm in a glass-heated cabinet. Beside the till stood a little glass-fronted cabinet with a light bulb inside and a gentle heating element beneath, and in it sat the pride of the counter. Pork pies, sausage rolls, Cornish pasties, and the occasional Scotch egg, all kept lukewarm under that soft yellow glow for hours on end. You pointed at what you fancied, and it came out on a small plate or wrapped in a square of greaseproof paper. There was no temperature probe, no time limit, no reheating log. That pie had been sitting under the bulb since the morning delivery, and it tasted all the better for it, the pastry gone slightly soft, the jelly warm. A pasty cost around 9p. A modern station would never keep hot food glowing under a bulb all day. To the traveller, that cabinet was a beacon. Number 17. Loose tea, warmed pot, no bag in sight. At the smarter refreshment rooms, tea was not slopped from an urn, but made properly in a metal pot. The staff warmed the pot with a splash of hot water first, tipped it out, spooned in loose leaf, and poured the boiling water on to brew for a few minutes before it reached your table. It came with a strainer, a jug of milk, and a bowl of sugar, served on a tray with that heavy white china. This was tea as ceremony, even on a draughty platform. A pot for one cost a few pence more than a mug, and it was worth every farthing. A modern station would never hand you a warmed pot and a strainer. You get a paper bag on a string and a rush to the platform. Number 16. Bread and butter cut fresh by hand. Before everything came pre-sliced and shrink-wrapped, the buffet cut its own. A staff member stood with a loaf and a long knife, slicing bread and spreading margarine or butter to order, arranging thin slices on a plate to go with your soup or your boiled egg. The bread was cheap, the labor cheaper, and the result was fresh in a way no packaged sandwich could match. You could ask for it thick or thin, and generally get what you wanted. A plate of bread and butter cost a few coppers and rounded out any meal. A modern station would never have someone standing there slicing loaves by hand behind the counter. It was slow, it was human, and it made a plain cup of soup feel like a proper sit-down meal. Number 15. Trust house staff who knew the regulars by name. Many station refreshment rooms were run by trust houses, and the good ones had a manageress who ruled the counter for 20 years and knew every commuter's order before they reached the till. The 7:52 crowd got their tea poured as they walked through the door. She knew who took 2 sugars, who was recovering from a cold, whose wife had just had a baby. That continuity meant the buffet was less a shop than a small community, a warm room full of familiar faces at the start of every grey morning. A modern station concourse, staffed by a rotating cast of agency workers who change monthly, would never know your name. Back then, the woman behind the urn was as much a fixture of the station as the clock on the platform. Second pattern break. Controversy incoming. Number 14. The buffet ran on an honesty tin at quiet halts. At smaller country stations where a full-time counter could not be justified, some refreshment arrangements ran almost entirely on trust. A tray of buns and a flask, a handwritten price card, and a tin with a slot in the lid. You took what you wanted and put the money in. No till, no receipt, no member of staff watching to see whether you paid the right amount or paid at all. Astonishingly, it mostly worked. Rural travelers were regulars, the community was tight, and being caught short-changing the buns was a shame no one wanted. A modern station would never leave food out with an unattended tin and simply hope people were decent. But for years, on quiet branch lines, British honesty balanced the books. Number 13. Rock cakes and Chelsea buns baked that morning. The counter was not just sandwiches. It carried a rotating cast of British baked goods that have all but disappeared from station life. Rock cakes studded with dried fruit, sticky Chelsea buns, Eccles cakes leaking sugar, currant tea cakes to be split and toasted, and slabs of heavy fruit cake cut into wedges. Much of it arrived from a local bakery each morning or was made on the premises where there was an oven out the back. A bun cost around 4 pence and sat well with a strong cup of tea. These were the cakes of childhood train journeys, handed down through a carriage window on a paper napkin. A modern station would never stock a proper Chelsea bun beside the tea. It is all muffins in cellophane now, and something has been lost in the swap. Number 12. Soup ladled from a great steaming pot. In winter, the buffet kept a vat of soup on the go, usually oxtail, tomato, or a thick vegetable broth, ladled hot into a bowl for a few pence, and served with that fresh-cut bread and butter. It simmered away all day, topped up as it went down, and there was no batch code or best before time governing how long it could sit. It was cheap, filling, and exactly what a traveler wanted after standing on an exposed platform in a gale. Workers on a break, families changing trains, soldiers heading back to barracks, all found comfort in a bowl of station soup. A modern station would never run an open pot of soup all day, ladled by hand. But that bubbling vat kept a lot of cold Britons going through a lot of hard winters. Number 11. Penny in the slot machines on the platform. If the buffet was shut or the queue too long, the station itself provided. Cast iron vending machines bolted to the platform wall dispensed a bar of Nestlé chocolate, a packet of chewing gum, or matches for the price of a coin dropped in the slot, and a lever pulled with a satisfying clunk. Some machines were beautifully enameled, advertising their wares in bright colors, and had stood in the same spot for 40 years. There was no screen, no card reader, no error message. You put the penny in, you pulled, and out slid your chocolate. A modern station would never rely on a mechanical penny machine that any child could operate. But those clunking iron boxes were part of the ritual of waiting, and they almost never broke down. Number 10. Coal fires warming the waiting room next door. The buffet did not stand alone. Beside it, or sometimes within it, sat a proper waiting room with a real coal fire crackling in a cast iron grate, tended by station staff who kept the scuttle filled. You could carry your tea through, settle into a wooden bench worn smooth by decades of travelers, and thaw out in front of the flames while you waited for a delayed connection. The smell of coal smoke mingled with the tea and the toast. It was warm, it was welcoming, and it cost the traveler nothing at all. A modern station would never keep an open coal fire burning for the comfort of waiting passengers. Now you shelter under a plastic canopy with the wind cutting straight through. That fire was the beating heart of the winter station. Third pattern break. Number 9. The buffet fried a full cooked breakfast to order. This is the one that earned a certain station manager a stern note from head office for the amount of dripping he was getting through. At the larger junctions, the refreshment room ran a proper griddle, and for a shilling or two you could sit down to a full English before catching the early train. Bacon, a fried egg, a sausage, fried bread, a spoon of beans, all cooked fresh on the hot plate and served on the heavy white china while the tea urn hissed beside you. The smell of frying bacon drifted right out onto the platform and pulled travelers in off the cold. A modern station would never run a hot griddle, cooking breakfasts to order on the concourse. But for the working traveler, that plate was the difference between a good morning and a grim one. Number 8. Milk kept in a jug, not a plastic pot. Nothing on the counter came sealed in individual portions. The milk sat in an open jug beside the tea, poured to your taste, and the sugar sat in a bowl with a shared spoon that 1,000 hands had touched. If you wanted a splash, you took a splash, and if you wanted it milky, you said so. There were no little foil-topped pots to peel, no paper sachets of sugar to tear and struggle with. It was faster, it produced no waste, and it treated the traveler like a grown-up capable of pouring their own milk. A modern station would never leave an open jug and a communal sugar bowl on the counter. But that jug meant your tea was made the way you liked it, not sealed to a portion size decided by an accountant in an office. Number 7. Staff in proper uniforms and white aprons. The people behind the counter dressed for the job. A crisp white apron, a cap or a hairnet. Sometimes the livery of the railway company or the trust house that ran the room. They looked the part of people serving food and drink, and there was a quiet pride in it. The manageress kept her counter spotless, the brass on the urn polished to a shine, the crockery stacked in neat towers. Presentation mattered even in the humblest platform buffet. A modern station kiosk staffed by someone in a branded fleece and a lanyard would never match that sense of occasion. Those white aprons told you that someone cared about the room, about the tea, about the traveler stood shivering on the far side of the counter waiting to be warmed up. Number 6. Newspapers and a rack to read them. While you waited, the buffet often had the day's papers on a wooden rack, and it was perfectly acceptable to sit for half an hour over a single cup of tea and read the news cover to cover. Nobody moved you on. There was no expectation that you would buy something every 15 minutes or vacate your seat for the next customer. The buffet was a place to linger, to shelter, to pass the dead time between trains in warmth and company. A cup of tea bought you a seat for as long as you needed it. A modern station cafe would never let you nurse one drink for an hour reading a paper. The buffet understood that waiting was the whole point of a station, and it gave you somewhere decent to do it. Number 5. Everything priced in shillings and chalked on a board. There were no laminated menus, no digital screens flashing offers, no meal deals. The prices went up on a blackboard in chalk, written in the old money, and changed by hand when they changed at all, which was rarely. A cup of tea, 4 pence. A pie, 9 pence. A round of sandwiches, a shilling. You knew exactly what things cost, and you knew they would cost the same next month. The whole operation was simple enough for a child to understand, and cheap enough for anyone to afford. A modern station would never run on a chalkboard and a cash drawer full of coppers. Now the coffee costs more than the old buffet charged for a full breakfast, and you need a card to pay for it. Number 4. Cash only, and change counted into your palm. There was no other way to pay, and no one expected one. You handed over your coins, the woman behind the counter rang it into a heavy mechanical till with a satisfying ding, and counted your change back into your palm coin by coin. The whole transaction took seconds and never once failed, because a network was down or a card was declined. A shilling and a few pennies got you tea and a bun with change to spare. A modern station would never operate purely on cash counted by hand, but there was something reassuringly solid about it. The weight of the coins, the ring of the till, the certainty that the machine would never tell you it was temporarily unable to process your payment. It simply worked, every single time. Number 3. The all-night buffet for the sleeper crowd. The trains ran through the night, and so did the buffet at the big termini. Travelers changing onto the midnight sleeper, soldiers on leave, night shift workers, and the odd soul with nowhere else to go could find a lit window and a hot cup of tea at 3 in the morning. The urns still hissed, the pies still glowed under the bulb, and a lone member of staff kept the vigil until the first commuters arrived at dawn. It was warmth and safety in the small hours when the rest of the city had shut its doors. A modern station would never keep a full buffet running through the night for the handful who need it. But the railway understood that the traveller's need for a hot drink does not end at closing time, and it kept the kettle on. Number 2. Left luggage taken on trust with a paper ticket. Beside many buffets sat the left luggage office, where you handed over your case, suitcase, or awkward parcel and received a flimsy paper ticket in return. That was the entire security system. No lockers, no scanners, no photo identification, no fee that cost more than the contents. A porter simply stacked your bag on a shelf among hundreds of others and trusted the ticket to reunite you with it later. It was cheap, it was quick, and it relied almost entirely on everyone behaving decently, which, remarkably, they mostly did. A modern station would never take your luggage on nothing more than a torn paper stub. Now your bag goes through an airport-style ordeal if it can be stored at all. The old system ran on trust, and the trust held. Number 1. It served as the warm heart of the whole community. More than the tea, more than the pies, more than the coal fire, the railway buffet was a place. It was where a whole town's comings and goings passed through, where sweethearts said goodbye on the platform in scenes straight out of Brief Encounter, where the lonely found company and the cold found warmth. The manageress knew the town's business, the regulars knew each other, and a cup of tea bought you a seat at the center of it all. It asked little and gave much. A modern station, all glass and steel and self-service screens, would never be the beating heart of anything. It is a place you pass through as fast as you can. The old buffet was a place you were glad to stop. There they are. 25 things the old railway buffet did that no modern station ever would. Which one do you remember best? The stewed tea, the curling sandwiches, the coal fire in the waiting room? Tell me in the comments, and if this brought a bit of that warmth back, you know where the subscribe button is.